advertisers should not feel bad about average cost per clicks rising. They're going up regardless. And one of the fears and frustrations I have about this news is that we've been so conditioned to believe that average cost per click is tied to our success with quality score, that we get a cheaper click by having a better quality score. And so regardless of the fact that, yes, you should still pay attention to quality score, it helps get you the best possible price. You should not feel like you have failed your account or you have failed your brand simply because your average cost per clicks are going up. Everyone is seeing that.
One way to think about this news from Google inflating auction prices is that if you've been monitoring your success, your self-worth, and you've tied it to your CPCs, there may be external factors that have changed those CPCs, right? And I think it's a little bit the same. There could be industry factors happening. It could be something happening in the world, or it could be Google who's just changing some of the thresholds. And I think one of the solutions there is look at industry benchmarks. If you see that your CPC is up 10%, but everybody else in your industry is up 20%, well, great. And your work, your optimization efforts have actually produced a less
Amazing
expensive.
results. Yeah.
Exactly. Google is on trial. And some of the things that have come out that we've learned or that we've known but have been confirmed again in this trial. What are some of those things?
So there's things on the PPC side and there are things on the SEO side. Because we're going to keep this pretty short, it's just going to focus on the PPC side. But if you have questions, absolutely put them in the comments and we'll address. So one of the big ones is that Google has increased the average cost per click around 5 to 10%. And one of the lines that really stood out is that they were concerned that 15% would have been a bridge too far, but 5 to 10%, they felt like no one would notice. And there's two reasons why that really sticks out to me. Number one is that Google went on record in 2015 at one of the SMXs, and shout out to Tenuity for having that recording, where they said, we are not going to do this. Now, to be clear, I have truly no problem with there being a minimum, but it should be a disclosed minimum. And if we're not told to budget effectively, we're going to have bad campaigns. The other piece that this does, and it's actually very important, and it speaks to what we were just talking about, that 5 to 10% increase feels like the failure of messing up in your account, that either you're bidding yourself up or that you have a bad structure, so you're getting a bad quality score. So it makes advertisers feel like they failed when in fact it's just, this is the mechanic of the campaigns. This is just what the prices are. So I don't think anyone would be really upset if we were told what was happening. The problem was that it was not disclosed, and in conjunction with search terms not being shared and feeling like we're seeing the majority of our spend going to things that are not disclosed, to performance max taking away the ability to just run feed only. So for those that want to run e-commerce and not think about a video campaign or display, like they have to think about that. It's more what it was next to and what it was in context with that was really the issue.
Yeah. Advertisers crave control. And so what you're saying, PMax takes away some of that control. Some other things that Google does take away control. And at the end of the day, what we just want to know is, listen, my results have gone up or down a certain way. Like how much of that is due to the work that I put in, and how much of that is due to something that happened in the industry, and how much of that is due to the fact that Google changed the reserve pricing for the auction. And by the way, I'll argue against you on this one, but if you go to I'm currently bidding on something at an auction and they disclose there's a reserve price, but they don't tell you what the reserve price is. So the other bidder that I'm competing against could actually be the house that's forcing up that bid so that I will eventually hit the minimum. Now, that's very typical in auctions, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's basically saying, listen, that seller does not want to sell me that thing below a certain price, and I want that thing enough. And so if my maximum CPC, if my maximum bid can be high enough, let them bid it up to the minimum, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But I guess what you're saying is Google is wishy-washy, says we don't do this when they in fact do it, and that's the problem.
Exactly. So I have zero problem with commerce behaving as commerce does. LinkedIn, one of the things I love about LinkedIn is that they are very transparent. You need to have X minimum. And if you don't, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to afford the auctions. It's just not going to be worthwhile. Even Microsoft, like Microsoft has, and granted, Microsoft is much cheaper than Google due to just how many people are maybe not on Microsoft, but we'll see if that changes. Microsoft states the minimums. So Google not stating minimums, it actually hurts them because when we're crafting budgets according to what we believe historical performance has been, and we're not setting enough of a budget to actually invest in the leads that we need. And then we see that, hey, performance is going down, like we're not getting enough leads to hit enough sales, like this is just not working. And so it's actually hurting them not to disclose that so that advertisers can set meaningful budgets. Many brands, if you don't spend it, you lose it. So they'd have zero problem if they knew that they had to budget a little bit more going for that budget. The issue is that they weren't given that intel to actually invest meaningfully.
Right. And as an industry, we're really moving away from CPC as a benchmark. And I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
still a benchmark, but ultimately what we should be driving towards is profit. And an intermediate step towards that maybe is your target return on ad spend. And so these 5 to 10% increments in the bids, these are becoming blended in with broad match becoming broader. So going and fishing for new things that are maybe more expensive, and then the things that the queries you were buying before, those become 10% more expensive because the auction floor has been raised. And so that's a little bit the problem too, right? It's becoming this black box and we have no clue why things are moving a certain way. And that's also then the argument that a lot of advertisers make is they don't want to give margin data to Google because if the auctioneer knows exactly what your breaking point is, to your point about could they inflate prices 15%? They probably know that answer, right? Because if you've told them your margin, then they know exactly at what point the pain is going to be too much that you don't want to do this anymore. And that's why we see advertisers coming to Optmyzr and using Optmyzr as a trusted third party to put in margin data, to put in business data. We take it based on the conditions that those advertisers have, and we give Google back a target return on ad spend, right? If they hit that, perfect, because on the back end, we know there's a buffer built in that the advertiser is controlling. And so it's you have to find these techniques to bring back that control that you so much crave.
I think one of the things that we will see moving forward off of this is increased transparency because of the backlash. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the things that advertisers have clamored for a really long time start popping up within the UI. But I don't know if the trust will be there.
Hopefully, you've enjoyed hearing us talk a little bit about our thoughts on all of this industry news. Please do engage with us in the comments. If there's any thoughts you want to share, we'll reply to those. If there's anything you want us to talk about more, let us know as well. Navah and I were both at Optmyzr. We're always happy to put together some of this content to help everyone out. So thanks for watching.
Cheers, guys.